But if you do the math, the enemy only got 370 kills. Oh.
Average Skaven gameplay? Now, from the title, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that it's likely gonna be about Ikit Claw, which I believe is the Skaven leader who throws around nukes. Once again, I only know the lore surrounding the game. I don't really know too much about Total War as a game, since I have yet to play it, but I will schedule the stream very soon. I'm still trying to find the time. But as the mad scientist VTuber, I feel like I should give the Skaven a chance. Initially, they didn't interest me, but after hearing about their insane inventions and I guess the way they play, I feel like I'm pretty much obligated to. But of course, as always, the original video will be linked in the description. Please go down there and give a like and subscribe to the Grim Kleaper if you haven't already, because I'm just here to learn more about Total War.
Chemical warfare, ignoring the Geneva Convention, and putting a whole new meaning to the term friendly fire. Because today in Total Warhammer 3, we'll be drowning the world in rats by keeping a level head, befriending our neighbors, and being an overall menace to society. What couldn't
my God.
With the release of Immortal Empires, Total Warhammer now has a massive new map combining 3 different campaigns into one, and with it some interesting...
I think you get this by owning all 3 games on the same platform, right? In the trailers, they were like, oh yeah, it's the entire universe, and then you play against every single faction, and I was like, oh my goodness, how long are the turn timers gonna be? And apparently it's not too long. There was a comment talking about how the games actually don't last for too long, because once you reach a certain point, you basically know that you've already won, since you just out-resource all the AI. But at some point, it'll be interesting to experience this. However, I just don't have the money to buy all 3 games. Gotta wait for another sale at some point in the future. For now, I think we'll be happy just playing Total War Warhammer 2.
New mechanics. Naturally, it was only fitting that we play as the best faction. For those of you who don't know who the Skaven are, 2 words. Many rat. Our starting leader was Ikit Claw, a very sane and stable individual. In the options, I enabled something called Ultimate Crisis Mode, which takes the endgame and tweaks some things. So I'll explain it a bit more later. Starting the game, our main settlement was Skavenblight, the breathtaking and luxurious capital of all rat kind. The map we were on was the Immortal Empires map, which is insanely large with about 278 factions, of which...
Jesus, man, 278? I also asked the question of how do you balance a game with that many factions that have their own unique abilities? And I guess the general consensus was that, that's a cool thing. You don't. So I'm sure there's like completely OP BS, and I think there was even a comment saying how the Chaos Dwarves are just pay to win, which I don't know too much about when it comes to the game itself, obviously, but yeah, that would be a nightmare to work on the balancing team.
Which we were gonna break. But first, we needed to secure land, starting with the settlement next to us. Despite Warhammer being mostly medieval, Skaven have miniguns. As a bunch of rat people, not only have our units not touched grass, they don't know what grass is. Our front line is weak, our heroes walking toothpicks, and our morale isn't real. But we do have one major strength. Above all else, Skaven are cheap. So cheap, in fact, that the lives of my infantry are worth slightly less than my bullets. I like how we've already won the battle, and I am still friendly firing my own units.
Yeah, I think the general tactic of the Skaven is send a bunch of really cheap units, swarm the enemies, and then just kind of nuke everybody, even your own units. I feel like these battles will very easily turn into you mostly friendly firing your own troops more than the enemy kills your troops, but we'll see how this goes.
With the fight ended, we'd gained our second settlement. On the campaign map, we could construct and upgrade buildings to train higher level Skaven, troops that were basically still bad. Ikit Claw also leveled up, so we started to train his...
What are some of these things? You have a jetpack?
...his campaign skills. Ikit also has a special mechanic called the Forbidden Workshop, which lets us upgrade our various weapon team.
What? Okay, I think we saw that thing. It's a Doom Flayer or Doom Wheel. We saw that in the cinematic trailers just going around. It reminded me of that other vehicle from Star Wars. I don't remember the name of it. I need to get into Star Wars lore too, but these weapons seem pretty insane. I wonder if there's like a set chance that it'll break in the middle of battle? Like, would they even add that as a game mechanic? Because I'm pretty sure that's a lore thing.
And build doom rockets. As the name suggests,
Hell
they're
yeah.
tools for world peace. Our first upgrade was for our rattling guns, which is a minor change that gives them infinite ammo. We walked over to the capital of our Empire enemies, but the garrison was too large to fight, so I backed off. After ending the turn and cycling through all 200 AI factions, the enemy army attacked us outside the city. Because we were fighting in a choke point map, we clogged both entrances with an inabdominable wall. Skaven slaves. With the enemy army blobbed up, I decided to test our weapons. Despite mowing down the rest of them and winning the battle, we took 722 losses. Gee, I wonder why. With the army defeated, we moved on to their capital.
Well, there you go. Mostly friendly fire.
And began to siege it down. While the siege continued, we had another important scheme being set up. I'd moved a warlock engineer all the ways up to the Wood Elf cities to use his special ability, expanding the Under Empire. This essentially establishes a city under a city. We can build various things in our under cities too, but most importantly, steal money.
That's a unique mechanic to the Skaven, right? I believe in one of the videos we had watched, they have this entire Under Empire which stretches across pretty much the entire world. And it's always a constant fear of the people residing in this universe that they have to make sure that there's no entrances for the Skaven to live in. They could pop out at any moment and they would just swarm you, and that would kind of just be the end of it. Which makes me wonder like what the story is behind Vermintide 2. Which is another game that I did buy during the winter sale, and I plan to play at some point. Maybe with some friends, who knows. Settlement will be raised upon building completion. Undercity is destroyed upon building completion. Nani? A doomsday device?
To build subterranean dirty bombs. Yeah, no, that too. But first, we need to keep expanding above ground, so we took that capital city, eliminating our only enemy. Never mind. For some reason, people think we're some kind of threat to society. Officer, I wasn't doing anything illegal, it was just a Breaking Bad reference. By expanding the Under Empire, people would get unhappy. And not just people, this guy's a tree. Plus, some Undercity buildings automatically expand to other settlements, so pretty much everyone would hate us. Back to being above ground, we moved over to colonize the ruined settlement, but apparently a Beastman herdstone prevented me from doing it. Surely going to war with one more person couldn't hurt. Attacking the settlement allowed us to show off our warp grinders. By causing minor ecological damage, we could immobilize all nearby enemy units. We occupied the settlement and ended the turn. And a message from the Fae of Brettonian. I wonder what that's about. And
of course.
This guy too, I don't even know who you are. We colonized one of the ruins, continue upgrading our settlements, and the Beastmen were back. I am scared. But I guess the AI wasn't, because instead of fighting back, they literally just sat there while eating bullets. Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on in their head?
Oh my god, it's tipping.
Despite our advantage, they tore through our front line. Well, I tore through our front line. We mopped up the rest of the Beastmen, and before long, it was just one left. Their leader, Morgar. But of course, we had bullets, so he didn't stand a chance.
And your allies too.
Morgar has health regeneration, meaning he just sat there and tanked several thousand bullets. It could claw, routed. All my infantry ran away, and my rattling guns kited him for 30 minutes straight. I have a question. Why, God?
30 minutes straight? How long does a normal campaign last? I feel like several weeks. Like, if you look at the timer up top here, I think it started like, what, 60 minutes? So like an hour each for each battle? Well, I'm sure like not every battle reaches that. It probably ends sooner than later. I'm sure the ones where you're like capturing a city will last a lot longer. And from what I hear, people don't really like those battles. And there's definitely the auto-resolve system as well, which isn't too good. Apparently. Kind of unfortunate, but at least sometimes it works, right? But man, if you run into an enemy that just regenerates more health than you can actually dish out, then I guess you're just kind of screwed. They just 1v1, 1v your entire army.
Even after the fight, we couldn't catch Morgar, so he lived to inconvenience me another day. But at least now we had a break for one turn. Orion's army attacked one of our cities, and while we couldn't win, we could deal damage. When defending settlements, we get insanely busted towers, which goes in line with throwing fodder at our enemy.
Oh, so there's also like a somewhat of a tower defense aspect to this? Or maybe it's more like base building, strategic base building, mixed with the RTS elements. 200
dead elves later, Orion sacked the settlement and ran away. He also attacked Ikit in a fight that favored us. Orion's army was fairly weak when we approached, and Orion, as one of the tankiest characters in the game, died immediately. After the fight, we started to upgrade our capital, and with it, we worked towards the pinnacle of Skaven weaponry. The wonderful beauty of chemical warfare. Before we could violate international safety laws, we had a bigger problem.
You guys
One
watch that
covered in
anime, let me
leaves,
know.
wood, and was basically a 30-foot tall tree. Durthu had decided to wander over and Fusroda for the trees. And right behind him,
Durthu.
amazing. I recruited another lord and
he's
trained
back.
more Rattling gunners. After Durthu occupied a settlement, we attacked with our combined armies. Hello, giant tree man. With Durthu destroyed, we turned to deal with Morgar, if I could find him. Beastman armies hide by default, so another siege. Somehow, our paperweight...
okay. I guess that's a plus for the Beastmen. I had been asking, like, why would you play the Beastmen? I feel like the other factions are just more capable, but they also have their own game plan and, like, insanely strong units that are pretty good at, like, raiding. And we also learned here that apparently they just hide automatically. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'll just tap to learn the charm of each faction on my own, because oh boy, there's a lot.
Almost won, until some dogs ran to the back, captured the victory point, and we lost. I'm sure my settlements love getting burned to the ground every other day. On the bright side, we'd made an ally.
Capture the
Aranessa
flag. I guess that's
Zaltspite,
kind
who
of
was
the system
basically an
for
undead pirate
those
queen.
type of
Somehow
fights.
she girl-bossed her way into burning down the wood of forests, so she was helpful. Going forward a bit, we recolonized all of our ruined settlements, made contact with the chaos demons in the north, and discovered the Shrine of Cain. On the map, there exists an item called the Sword of Cain. Basically, it turns someone into a murderous psychopath, so we're unaffected. If we had it, we'd turn Ikit Claw into essentially a god. It would also put us at...
Well, I mean, Ikit Claw kind of isn't all there to begin with, from my understanding, so getting a super busted item with that downside seems like a good trade-off. That's interesting, though. I think they have that system in Civ 6 with one of the DLCs, where there's like legendary weapons or something that you can collect, or relics. I think it was relics that you can collect, and they give you like special bonuses. It makes sense from a gameplay perspective, especially with a campaign map like this, to have a strategic areas that you would want to go for.
At war with pretty much everyone. So again, business as usual. Our second army got intercepted by the Beastmen.
There's
and
always a
after
downside to
retreating,
everything.
Oh, hello, Durthu. Wait, why are the Beastmen your reinforcements? Both of you are at war.
Why?
To deal with Morgar, bribery. As for Durthu, he kinda just moonwalked away. Yeah, that's not concerning at all. But after everything was said and done, we'd finally secured our peninsula. Unfortunately, it came at the cost of something valuable. The itsy-bitsy unimportant ability to eat. Now, Skaven society is a lot like Soviet society. There is no food. Each settlement, undercity, and army consumes food every turn. And we had zero. To get food, we could build certain structures or find another solution. Hello, city.
Yes. Well, I guess this is their resource. I should actually take a look up top here, because we had seen Cetra's resources, and he had like the jars or whatever that he used for his unique system. But here it looks like we have vials, 2 different kinds of vials, as well as obviously the food meter, which I'm sure plays a part in all the factions that need to consume a lot. Like what comes to mind is the ogres.
Full of peasants. With a foothold in Castle French name, we continued through our research tree, built walls in our other settlements, and got a quest for Ikit's unique weapon, Storm Demon. So to get it, we had to go through a quest battle, which didn't look too bad, right?
Ikit has the biggest brain of all round.
Are you sure about that?
That's all I needed to hear. The quest battle was against the Lizardmen, who have high health infantry and monsters. In terms of infantry, we had Poison Wind Globadiers, which damage everything they hit. They're also the reason why my front line is dead. Our Rattling gunners could deal with most of their monsters. Case in point. I also forgot to mention that we picked up these extremely elite Council Guard, which are essentially our best infantry in the game. Hence why we are shooting them in the back. As we dealt with the first army, a second one came in too. This one entirely made up of monsters and dinosaurs. We finished off the initial army, got hit by an orbital sunbeam, kind of bad.
My god.
And the Ripperdactyls reenacted a prehistoric Pearl Harbor. But with the monsters, it was still close. Our infantry were like grass, being mowed by bigger grass. And we had to kite the Lizardmen back.
What the heck is that? You're just an orbital laser. Whose power is that? I mean, we are fighting against the Lizardmen, and the Lizardmen have some really powerful mages, yeah? Mages that apparently can, like, move mountains in order to make it so that, yeah, this is what the old plan said, and so the mountain needs to be over here. But I think you guys also said that one of the Slan mages, I think they're called, did that before, and that it's kind of what screwed over the dwarves. Need to learn more about this old plan of ours. Because we're definitely starting with the lizardmen first, because they're really cool.
With our rattling guns. Through the power of the NRA, willful ignorance, and running away from our problems like it was 2020, we barely came out on top. So in winning the battle, we took 830 casualties. But if you do the math, the enemy only got 370 kills. Oh.
Average Skaven gameplay? Is this it? I'm sure it is.
Oh no. With the battle won, we got access to Ikit's Storm Demon weapon.
Oh,
the global
yeah.
obedience bonus was nice because
do?
towards the end of the game, things get hectic.
Obedience. Obedience. I guess that's like a loyalty mechanic. But then there's also like chaos that's constantly seeping and I guess trying to corrupt everything. Maybe it has to do with that. Well, I mean, the Skaven probably aren't too afraid of chaos. Like, they're not allies to chaos, right? They follow the Great Horned Rat, I think is their god, who's also like super powerful, but he's not one of the 4 chaos gods. So I think maybe obedience is just more of loyalty to their leader, and I guess the trust that the citizens and the population in each city would have to their leader.
By enabling Ultimate Crisis Mode, we'd be fighting against ridiculous odds later in the game. Right after the battle, 2 Brettonian armies showed up and started sieging our castle. Luckily, we leveled Ikit up to have Lightning Strike, which means he can lock reinforcements out of battles when attacking, so we could 1v1 any army. The masses of unwashed peasants were led by the Fey Enchantress, riding a meth addict Bojack horseman. Meanwhile, Ikit casually rode a giant electric hamster wheel. I was initially worried about their Grail Guardians, who are one of the most elite cavalry in the game. Or should I say, were the most elite. But isn't using poison gas against peasants kinda overkill? Well, according to my Magic 8-Ball, try again later. By winning the battle, we got a unique trait for Ikit. We also unlocked the Avalanche Mortars, which are kinda nuts. A legendary Wood Elf hero also showed up. A practical demigod, Ariel was one of the most powerful creatures in existence. And now, with the help of one sneaky rat, dead. We attacked the remnants.
What? What in the world? One sneaky... I need to go back and see that. Oh, assassinate. Okay. Well, we do know that there are... What was it? Clan Ishin? I think? I'm sorry. I forget these things. There's so much that I'm learning about. But there are, like, assassin rats and clans that are specifically for that. As well as, obviously, Ikit Claw's clan, which is geared towards nuclear bombs and just science in general. And then another one that's about plagues. But I guess it makes sense to have a mechanic where you can send a singular unit, or maybe it's like a hero unit, to go and attempt to assassinate an enemy leader. There's probably like a % chance of that succeeding or not. And then you would send them back to their capital city or respawn point or whatever for like 5 turns. Unless if it's one of the vampire lords, which you guys said he just respawns every single turn.
We attacked the remnants of the Brettonian army and ambushed them too. Now, how long do you think this whole fight will last? If you guessed 27 seconds, you'd be off by 1 second. Bretonia got 0 kills, and we lost 75 people.
Jesus Christ. Wait, how many do we lost 75 and they couldn't kill it? Okay, well, that's to be expected.
That's fantastic. While all of this had been going on, we'd been expanding the Under Empire. My warlock engineer had taken a slight detour and established a city under the Dark Elf capital. We also had one under the High Elf capital and every Wood Elf city. If you couldn't tell, elves don't really like us. Like Ariel, who is back to being a mild inconvenience. It was becoming clear that we'd have to deal with the Wood Elves before expanding further north. In order to eliminate the Wood Elves, we need to raise or occupy every city in Athel, Loren. I occupied both bordering Brettonian cities above us to have a staging ground. We fought the Fey Enchantress, again, upgraded the defenses on our main peninsula, and re-recruited a second army. This one will be filled with entirely infantry to supplement Ikit's army. Now, Wood Elves are generally isolationists, so they rarely leave their lands. That is, except for Durthu. Our second army was back in Skavenblight, so we needed to sally out and fight 3 massive Wood Elf armies. Army 1, Army 2, and Army 3, meaning once again we'd have to fight this future desk. Outnumbering them 3-1, we started the battle, and before long, Durthu was taking no sass. Our Rattling Gunners had to keep kiting backwards, and after only 5 minutes, we'd taken 1,000 casualties. Still, we had insane numbers, so we gadded Durthu while he was bogged down and prepared to handle the second army. And handle, we did. We rallied our infantry and sent them into the meat grinder. As they say, if you're not dying, you're not trying. Despite most of the elf units being ranged, it's hard to compete with infinite ammo miniguns and corrosive poison. We routed the remaining elves and won the battle. With both armies gone, it left Durthu's only city open, so we sacked it
Doing
for
pretty good on
15k,
food.
then came back a turn later and raised it. Wood Elf settlements are undesirable for Skaven, which translates to massive debuffs if we claim them, making the Elf War much harder. What
So,
was helpful
just
was getting
destroy
our
it?
first Plague Priest who can summon more rats during battles. And with
Plague
our
Priest.
strategy, it would get kinda broken, because we'd also gotten access to one of our most powerful units, Poisoned Wind Mortars. Now let's talk about something close to all of our hearts, the Geneva Convention. You might be interested to know that the convention doesn't actually talk about chemical weapons. See, that's actually in a separate document called the Geneva Protocol, where it states that nations can't use all that cool fun stuff in war. But what it doesn't prohibit is the manufacturing, storage, and commercial use of chemical weapons. Therefore, if I fire off my mortar loaded with skin-eating toxins during an investor showcase, and it just so happens to land in the middle of a bunch of peasants, have I really done anything wrong? If anything, it's
True.
their fault for standing within 10 miles of
Logic
me. Poison
100.
Wind Mortars are essentially our best anti-infantry unit, because they deal flat poison damage to all units, whether they hit elite infantry or Skaven slaves, we don't care. Which is especially relevant for our fight against the Wood Elves and their high-tier units. And on that topic,
It works
Orion
for
was
our
back.
strategy.
While he sat on the edge of our land, we took another Brettonian settlement, got a trade agreement from a savvy investor, and much like NSFW Twitter, watched the Beastman get clapped. We also got an event with the leader of our second army, leading to him getting badly mutated, which is apparently a massive
Badly mutated? That's a buff? It's a Skaven. What am I even thinking about here?
combat bonus. How that makes sense, I don't want to know. To our right was Sartosa, a faction of undead pirates. We allied them and started to build an outpost, which would allow us to recruit their units. After sieging a few more Brettonian cities, the Fey Enchantress attacked one last time. The fight
Lots of
was
different
10 minutes
strategies
of
you could
this.
have.
Winning meant that the Fey's faction was gone for good, not like that stopped
Finally.
another Brettonian faction from continuing the war. And Lewin's
Oh,
army
well.
was completely terrifying, so we ignored it. Besides that, our expansion was going well, but one problem. See everyone with a red outline around their icon? That means they hate us. See all the people without a red outline? Yeah, neither do I.
None.
While we doubled our land, we were also in for a rude awakening, starting with the Wood Elves. At this point, we were at war with just about everyone. Sartosa was useless, and Grom the Paunch kept trying to make military alliances with me. Full disclaimer, he has one city. The Dark Elves didn't...
Grom's not doing too good. And I mean, it makes sense why he just wants to be friends.
hate us too much, but every high elf had declared war on us. So priority number 1, erase the Wood Elves. Orion, dead. Rebellion, dead. Ariel just chilling in some dead. We also intercepted an army and fought them in the woods. Seeing as they were outnumbered 5-1, we almost lost. I fortified our Wood Elf Under Empire, giving all units in the area Vanguard deployment. So in sieging their city, we could deploy all our units right on top of them. 5 seconds into starting the battle, and turns out mortars are pretty decent. We advanced into the city, had our reinforcements come in, and caught the AI bugging out on a barricade. You know, when you say line up against the wall, you don't actually expect them to do it. Running away didn't help either. Probably hurt, actually. And with the battle won, we'd successfully taken Orion's capital. While we were doing that, we built up our Plague Priest capacity, which would give Ikit's army more clan rat summons. Sartosa also wanted us to join a war against the Tomb Kings. And as their stalwart military ally,
Tomb Kings.
no. Back to Athel, Loren, right in the center is the Yoke of Ages. It's kind of like that tree in Avatar with the blue hippies. Long story short, we cut it down. Another Wood Elf city later, and we'd taken half of Athel, Loren. Unfortunately, it opened us up to more attackers, like...
I am supreme!
Okay. Not even one turn later, an Empire army. Luckily, they walked straight into an ambush, and 68 seconds of fighting later, gone. Of course,
Well, I mean, especially for our current tactics with how many ranged weapons we have, getting somebody in an ambush is definitely the play here. Although I feel like the Skaven might be a bit more versatile. They can also like do siege warfare very well, especially, you know, Ikit Claw, obviously. But ideally, you'd want to have it to where your front line is able to block off any enemy advances so that your backline can shoot everybody in the back.
right after, another ambush with similar results. If you couldn't tell by this point, we're going to be doing a lot of ambushes. Skaven by default can ambush any army they attack, and by leveling a certain skill, we ambush almost 100% of the time.
Oh my god, well then yeah, use this. That's just how rats fight, I guess.
At last, we sieged the final Wood Elf city, but now with some extra help. Our Plague Priest had gotten a Plague Furnace, which on top of just being big, scary, and morally questionable, actively damages all enemies around it. But even now, our Death Ball wasn't in its final form. That being said, the siege wasn't particularly crazy. It was really just a lot of... With Waterfall Palace occupied, we now controlled all of Athel Loren. Moving ahead a little, we eliminated another Brettonian faction, laughed in Grom's face again, and finally established relations with Arkan the Black. Considering my only friends are either undead pirates or undead Egyptians, my social credit score was not looking good. Speaking of social credit, I went ahead and checked who the most powerful faction by strength rank was. Turns out it was China. I said China. Now, while our army was looking seriously powerful right about now, it also couldn't be everywhere at once. So while we took 1, 2, 3 more Brettonian settlements, our armies were stretched thin. Still, I recruited 2 more plague priests to add to Ikit's army, because later in the game we need an even better army to deal with ultimate crisis mode. We sacked more of Brettonian, iced some random high elves, and recruited a 4th army, filling it with stuff. After occupying one of Brettonia's last cities, they made a desperate attack to get a settlement back. Now, my garrison is hot garbage. King Loren can beat all of them on his own. Sorta. So getting into the battle, we built some towers and defenses.
Let's see how this
Loren's
goes.
army was small, so we pelted down his infantry and accompanying heroes. Now here's the real problem. Big boy. We couldn't actually damage him because he has health regeneration. So instead, I let him rout my units and chase them off. See, flying units can't be alone. If they don't land to fight, they'll eventually forfeit the battle. So Loren beating my units is cool and all, but what about these guys? By hiding on the other side of the map, Loren could not physically get to us before the air unit penalty kicked in, causing him to have a midlife crisis and die of a stroke. As Sun Tzu once—
What? No, that's a big brain play. Using the mechanics of the game against it. Oh, man.
said in his book, The Art of Cheese, skill issue, lol.
But
the cheese wasn't done yet. One of our core settlements was being sieged by high elves. Good thing we had that 4th army. Oh my god. Calling that an army was an insult to the military-industrial complex. It was bad. And now fighting a legendary lord, Eltharion the Grim. The plan was simple.
Let's see how this goes.
By running some spiky hamster wheels into the middle of their army, I banked on one thing, which worked. With 60% of their army dead in 1 second, we hit—
Okay, I mean, I gotta imagine that the bloated corpses are basically just suicide bombers, yeah? Go in, they explode, they infect everybody, they probably poison them too. It could be extremely devastating if the enemy is grouped up.
Hit Eltharion with the old Expelliarmus and won the battle. Overall, everything was looking good. Ikit's army was getting better and better, our 4th army was adding doom wheels, and we conquered Brettonian. But as much as things were going our way, we had one final threat to worry about, because rapidly approaching was the endgame crisis. In Immortal Empires, there are 5 different endgame crises to choose from. A Tomb King's Crusade, Dwarf Invasion, Orc Wa, Wood Elf War, and Vampire Apocalypse. And we'd picked all 5, with 200% difficulty. And at this point, we only had 10 turns to prepare.
I don't think I'd even be able to beat this game on normal. Like, hats off to Grim Kleaper for being able to do this and make an entertaining video out of it. Like, this takes a lot of skill, I would say. And I say that from the perspective of somebody who hasn't even touched this game yet. Like, I know that I'm not going to win my first campaign.
Prepare. We had alliances with the Vampire Counts, Demons of Chaos, and weren't totally hated by Malekith, so good enough. In line with stalling, I reinforced our garrisons and finished this horror of an army, which was on a wild goose chase against a random high elf army. But they weren't alone, because our entire northern land was being invaded. With the endgame crisis now only 5 turns away, I decided to just demolish the buildings for money and leave the settlements. The goal was to try and defend our core provinces so we weren't stretched too thin. A little bit of preparation later, we were on our final remaining turn. Now before I show you what the ultimate crisis looks like, here's everyone we were at war with before I ended the turn. Here it is now. Vampire Counts invasion, check. Orc Wa, yep. Dwarves and elves, just a few. Oh, and Tomb Kings. How could I forget? In a matter of 1 turn, about 200 armies appeared out of thin air all around the world. And to make matters worse, goodbye, Athel Loren. I'll see you in therapy. Oh, and remember Grom? This is him now. Something I didn't realize would happen was that the crisis automatically broke every treaty we had with Grom and Vlad. And the game acted as if we had broken them, so my reliability became 0. Now, while most places were essentially immediately overrun, our core provinces were safe. But given our proximity to both Athel Loren and Mausilian, that didn't mean much. In terms of strength rank, we dropped to 28th. But don't worry, we're only at war with 1 through 27. We retreated back into our territory, stole Grom's capital for money, and watched Athel Loren descend into chaos. On the bright side, all this time we've been peaceful with the Empire, so as long as we didn't do something stupid. Ah, right.
We did something stupid.
Forgot I built that. Luckily.
Oh my god. Oh well. It was a good run, my dudes.
I don't think they noticed.
They did it. What the? Oh man, that's beautiful.
Anyways, back to defending, I put armies on the bridges leading to our core lands. The Doom Wheel squad got caught by 2 much larger Vampire Count's armies, so we blobbed up our units and advanced with our Rattling guns. But the Vampire army was way too large. Most of their monsters are designed to kill large units, so our front and back line were quickly overwhelmed. In summary, we got clowned. That left us with 3 other armies to defend the front line, so it get picked up the slack. With 5 Plague Priests, we could summon non-stop clan rats to block attackers, and making friendly fire even more acceptable. After winning the battle, it fought another Wood Elf army. Using the same formula, we kited with the Plague Priests until the whole army had been finished off. But while Ickett was a powerhouse, he was also our solo carry, because our other armies got caught again by the Vampire Counts. Both armies were mostly fodder with a diverse combination of rats, undead pirates, and chaos warriors. Remember, all people are equally worthless. We lined up near the corner to wait for our reinforcements and use our mortars. But because our first army had no Rattling guns, they advanced across the field and broke our lines. Given their infantry are undead samurai and ours are that, it was no surprise we broke. Vargulfs and Crypt Horrors just ran over our infantry because we had nothing to stop them. By the end, we'd inflicted damage, but ultimately lost the battle and 2 of our 3 armies. That meant it was just Ickett against everyone. Simultaneously, our economy was losing ground, more armies were pouring in from the north, and the Tomb Kings were sailing up from the south. My list of at-war factions looked like a barcode. There was no chance we'd live much longer. So what could we do? Well, I mean, we could give up. As they say, it's about the journey and not the destination. Of course, whoever said that is clearly never driven to a Chick-fil-A on a Sunday. Locked door? No, I have the key. For a short campaign victory, we need to eliminate these 3 factions, which we've done, ruin 30 different settlements, also done, and level up the Forbidden Workshop to rank 3. For that, we just need a level 15 Warlock Engineer. And wouldn't you know, we had a level 13, which means we just needed one more battle, one grand and courageous conflict that would solidify our win. But who would we fight? Our arch enemy Durthu, or maybe the Red Duke and Massilia? High Elves, Dwarves, Tomb Kings, the world was our oyster. So to finish the game, I did the only thing any honorable Skaven would do.
My scurvy crew tell me you come to offer things, road.
Yes. The one faction that we've been allied with this entire time. Fair play.
Man.
Sure, in a way.
Oh man. This is beautiful chaos. Bodies
At last,
everywhere.
by defending ourselves from Sartosa, we've achieved a short campaign victory. Now we can get started on the long campaign victory. And, no.
Yeah, I thought so. It was pretty much over after that. Hey man, you got the short-term victory. Take that and leave. Yeah, I'm not activating that Ultimate Crisis mode. I feel like that's, you're asking yourself for a world of pain there. But man, dude, that video was so good. I love Grim Kleaper's editing style and his humor. The rats also seem so incredibly fun to play with their tactics that usually end up killing your own units more than the enemies, but like, hey, it's war. Total war at that. Once I get through the tutorial and learn about the Lizardmen, I think Skaven are pretty high up on the list of factions that I should be playing. If you guys want to see more of my Warhammer reactions, check out the playlist that has so magically appeared on your screen. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.